Imagine you're sitting at a normal table, about an inch, inch and a half thick, not some big, 2 to 3 foot tall butcher block table. So when you row today, I want you to think nails across the top, down around the edge, knuckles rub the bottom. So take the skin off the knuckles on the return, drag the nails across the top on the drive. If you think about the rowing stroke, you're at 90 degrees when you're sitting perfectly upright, and you pass through that 90-degree angle during your recovery. At the catch, you want to go 30 degrees to an acute angle that's roughly 60. So here, your knees would be up. Does that, you guys see kind of that positioning at the catch? At the finish, you're at about 120 degrees. The obtuse angle. Here, your legs are extended. Your feet are still in the foot stretchers. Actually, your feet wouldn't change. We'll just imagine these are the same feet for both positions. And your handles drawn in. Most of you, I would say, are really excellent at going from 90 to 120. I'm seeing a lot of neutral hip flexion or hip extension, neutral hip extension. I'm not seeing the hip flexion that needs to occur. You've got to get that 30-degree closure. If this were a clock, this would be 12. Here you're somewhere between 10 and 11. Over here you're somewhere between 1 and 2. Okay, if you think of an analog clock. It is a hard thing to think about on the rowing machine, but you have to think reach, rotate, or reach, rock. You've got to close the hip. On the rowing machine, we're at an advantage because we can actually stick our fingers right in somebody's hip crease and say, pinch my fingers. You want to feel that pinch occur before the knees bend. Part of the problem I'm seeing is some of you have your knees popping up really early. The moment you bend your knees, your hamstrings are activated. When your hamstrings are in contraction, can you forward fold? No. You have to have hamstrings that are not in contraction to get that pelvic flexion, that hip flexion. So you want to think about reaching, rotating. That's the whole stick your butt out. You're going to do it seated. So you want to think about taking your tailbone and pointing it to the back of your rail. Then you let your knees bend. We're going to work on that today. So that way you can achieve that 60-degree angle as you come into the catch. Because if you're trying to generate power from the hips, what do the hips have to do? They have to close. Kinetic energy, potential energy. You got to close the hips to garner that energy so that you can harness it when you need it, which is during the drive phase. Because the drive phase starts with knee extension, hip extension. If you're only going from neutral pelvis to hip extension, you're only getting about 30%, maybe 40 if you're lucky, of your maximal hip potential for power. You've got to close the joint. You've got to close the hinge so you can spring it open and get that power that you need to make the rowing stroke effective. So when you come to the catch, take a moment here to come into what we call catch position. Go ahead and join me if you would. And I want you to make sure that you can get a 90-degree angle at the knee as best as possible. You want your shins fairly perpendicular to the floor. If you can't come all the way, that's okay. Allow your heels to lift if they need to. If you feel like there's a lot of impingement with your hip flexors, you might need to lower your foot stretchers one set of holes. So from here, we're in what's called the catch. Your chest is up, hip flexion. Make sure your shoulder blades are on your back. So from here, start to push with your legs, just legs. Keep the hip closed. Once you're halfway back, begin opening the hip. So hips and legs work together. And then bring the arms in. So now we're at the finish. Check that your hands are slightly angled outward so your elbows can be out away from your body, but not like chicken wings, just comfortably away from the rib cage. Check that you've got midline stabilization. Your abdominal muscles are engaged. Your spine is wedded to your pelvis. Everything feels nice and firm here. Good. Excellent. Arms extend. Rotate. Stick your butt out. Stick your butt out. Stick your butt out. I want you to start to feel your hamstrings. No legs yet. Anyone feel a little tug on the hamstrings? Okay, good. You're in the right spot. Now don't change a thing and just let your knees rise. Your thighs will just move towards your chest. We come back right where we started. Ready? Legs, hips, arms. Turn it around. Arms, hips, legs, turn. Just keep it up like this for a moment. Now notice the rhythm. Quick drive, slower recovery. Push, glide, push, glide. Now let's just do this for a moment. I want you to think about nails on top, knuckles underneath. Nails on top, knuckles underneath. Good. We're going to pause at the catch in 2. I'll count here. 1, 2. Pause at the catch. Excellent. We're going to build the force curve. This is what we're going to do. We're not going to use our hips or the arms initially. We're going to focus on just that initial kick, kick, kick off the catch. That is that initial activation of the extension of the knees. Looks like this. Kick, 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 kick. Join me when you're ready. Keep the hips closed. Keep the hips in flexion. Notice that my knees never straighten all the way. I'm only rowing the first couple inches of my slide. Look at your force curve. Come to full catch and just back a little. Just a little kick, kick, kick. Look at your force curve. Put enough power on it that you see that nice little peak right at the kick off the catch. We're going to build on to that by adding the swing, which will be the hip extension. Looks like this. Watch. Kick, swing. Join me when you're ready. No arms yet. Kick, swing. Make sure you pivot before the knees bend. Stick your butt out on the way back up. Get that hip flexion. Look at your force curve. Kick, swing. Kick, swing. Good. We're going to add the arm pull. Looks like this. Kick, swing, pull. Kick, swing, pull. Good. Let's take 2 more, and then we'll pause at the finish. 1, 2, right at the finish, right here. Check your positioning. Chest is up, shoulder blades retracted, abs engaged. Good. Arms only. Ready? Row. Just arms. We're going to start the other end. Look at your itty bitty little force curve. Just work on making that little box. Check that you've got midline stability. Please don't bang your body with your handle. Right before your handle touches your body as you go around the turn, in, around, and away. Try not to use your shoulders. The motion should be from the elbows down. The shoulders do not move up and down. Good. We're going to add the body swing. Ready? In 2. 1, 2. Reach, rock. So I want your arms to extend and your hips to close. Reach, close, open, pull. So right now we're just loosening up through the pelvis. We're working on hip flexion and hip extension. Be sure to keep the arms long and loose while the hips are opening. Don't bend your arms early, please. Good. We're going to add a half slide where when we add the legs in, we're only going to come halfway forward to the catch, and we'll turn the stroke right around in 2. 1, 2. Reach, rock halfway, and turn it around. Reach, rock, roll halfway, turn it around. Try to make sure that your knees open before your hips. Keep your elbows long and loose. until the shoulders are through the hips. Then you can bend the elbows. Let's add full slide in 2. Nice full strokes.